What happens when a person or a group of people fail to move when God instructs them to move? Does God immediately cut them off? Moreover, what does God really expect from us? We're exploring the ancient book of Deuteronomy to obtain helpful guidelines to aid us in our daily living. In this lesson, we look at the issues of today from the perspective of what God expects from his people. Looking back on Moses leading the people of God in the wilderness and looking forward to our day and even into the future, our key text reminds us that the Lord Jesus Christ was leading his people through Moses, as with Moses, if we're willing, he will lead us today and even into the future. Thus, demonstrating Christ's leading then and now, our key text is found in 1 Corinthians 10, 3 and 4, and it says, "And they all ate the same spiritual food and all drank the same spiritual drink, for they drank of the spiritual rock that followed them, and that rock was Christ." The title of this lesson is Kadesh Barnea. A bad spirit haunts the early part of the book of Deuteronomy. It is the spirit of Kadesh Barnea. The spirit of Kadesh Barnea hovers in the immediate background of the book of Deuteronomy. This bad spirit originated in Numbers chapter 14. When you get a chance, read the entire chapter. Now we're in Deuteronomy, in which Moses is preparing the Israelites to take possession of the land of Canaan as the Lord had promised. In Numbers, at the pleading of the people, Moses sent out 12 spies to find out what they would be up against in battle. All but 2 spies came back with a bad report. 10 of the 12 spies reported that the people of the land was like giants and that the city was surrounded by a great high wall. Thus, they concluded it would be impossible for them to take possession of the land. Therefore, because of their rebellious spirit in refusing to take possession of the land, God reverted them back to the wilderness to journey there for 40 years. Thus, most of the elderly people died in the wilderness. Only their children had the privilege of entering the promised land. This is where Deuteronomy 1, 20 through 46 picks up. Moses is reminding them of the incident at Kadesh Barnea. Let's listen in on Moses' conversation. I'm reading it from the Clear Word edition. "Then we broke camp and set out in the direction the Lord told us to go. We left Mount Sinai, crossed the vast and dangerous desert, and headed toward the mountain of the Amorites until we reached Kadesh Barnea. It was there that I encouraged you by saying, 'We have reached the mountains of the Amorites and are on the borders of the land which the Lord our God has promised to give us. Let's go in and take the land as the Lord told us. Don't be afraid of the inhabitants, and don't let the things you see discourage you. You came to me and said, let's first send some men ahead of us to see what's there and bring back a report. Let them find out the best route to take and how fortified the cities are. Then we'll be ready to go.' This seemed like a good idea, so I let you choose 12 men, one from each tribe, and sent them on their way. First, they explored the mountains and then the Valley of Eshcol. When they came back, they even brought some fruit with them. and told us what a good land it was to which we were going, that it was just as the Lord had said it would be. But you were afraid, and you didn't think the Lord would give us the land. So you rebelled against him and refused to trust in what he could do for us. You grumbled and said, "The Lord brought us out here to die. He wants to turn us over to the Amorites to destroy us. Where do we go now?" The men who explored the land told us how huge and strong the Amorites were. That their cities were fortified with walls so high they looked as if they were touching the sky, and that the Anakites who lived there was giants. We doubt if we can ever go in and possess the land. I beg you at that time not to be discouraged or terrified by what you had heard, but to obey the Lord and step out in faith. I reminded you of what the Lord had done for you in Egypt and in the desert. You had seen how he fought for you there. I pointed out to you what he had done for you in the wilderness, and that he had protected you as a loving father cares for his only son. But in spite of all this, you refused to believe that the Lord would do it. Even though you knew he had led you in a pillar of cloud by day and a pillar of fire by night, and had showed you the way to go and where to camp. When the Lord saw your lack of faith in him, he was extremely displeased with you and said, "Not a single man from this generation will inhabit the land which I promised to give them, except Caleb the son of Jephunneh and Joshua the son of Nun. They will see it, and I will give them and their descendants the very land which they explored for you." The Lord would not even let me go in and see the land, because I became angry with you later at the water of Meribah near Kadesh Barnea, and took credit for bringing you out of Egypt, when actually the Lord had done it all. That was when the Lord told me that Joshua, the son of Nun, would take the people into the land of Canaan, because years before, he and Caleb believed wholeheartedly that the Lord could do what he had said, and they were ready to go. So Joshua is the one who will lead you into the promised land. After you had accepted the negative report of the men and rebelled against the Lord, he said, "As for your little ones, those who today do not know right and wrong, the ones you're so afraid will be taken from you by the inhabitants of the land. They will go in and possess the land that I promised to give you as an inheritance. But as for you, I want you to turn around and go back into the wilderness along the road by the Red Sea." We learn many important lessons from this story, but one important lesson found in Deuteronomy 1 and in Numbers 14 is Moses' role as intercessor or mediator. We initially see Moses in the role as mediator in Numbers 14:11 through 20. The issue here is what is significant in his line of reasoning with the Lord regarding why the Lord should not destroy these rebellious people. Let's listen in on Moses' conversation with God in his role as mediator. Numbers 14:11 through 20, the Clear Word Edition. The Lord said to Moses, "How long will these people accuse me of deceiving them? How long will they refuse to trust me in the face of all the miraculous things I've done for them? I'll send a plague among them and destroy them all. Then I'll make a much larger and stronger nation from your descendants." Moses answers the Lord and said, "No, Lord, if you do this, the Egyptians will hear about it and see you as a God of death, not a God of freedom. The news will spread to other nations who have already heard about your goodness and what you have done for your people. Many already know that you're in our midst and that your cloud hovers over us and guides us by day and protects us by a pillar of fire at night. If you let this plague come on the people and they all die, the nations around us will hear about it and say, their God brought them out of Egypt, but he wasn't able to make a good on his promise to bring them into Canaan. So he killed them and let their bodies rot in the wilderness. O Lord, let these nations see your compassion and mercy, and let them see that you are the kind of God you told me you were when you said, I, the Lord, am an angry God, but I abound in love, forgiving sin and rebellion. However, I will not stop the consequences of the sins of the parents on their children and grandchildren down to the third and fourth generation. So forgive the people their sin in harmony with your great love. Forgive them just as you have done so many times before, ever since we left Egypt. So the Lord answered, I'll forgive them as you asked. Did you notice what Moses was saying to God? God purposed to destroy the Israelites and form a new group of people out of Moses' seed. But Moses' response was, if you do this, look at how you will appear in the eyes of the Egyptians and the other nations in the area. This point is important because ultimately, everything that God had wanted to do with Israel wasn't just for the sake of Israel. It was also for humanity as a whole. The idea was the nation of Israel was to be a light to the world, a testimony to all about the love and power and salvation found in the true and living God, in contrast to the worthless idols the heathen nations were worshiping. Consequently, as Moses said, if you wipe these people out, then what? The other nation will say, because the Lord was not able to bring this people to the land which he swore to give them, therefore he killed them in the wilderness. In other words, what we see here is a theme found all through the Bible, the idea that God is to be glorified in his people. God desires to reveal his glory and goodness and love and power in their lives. Unfortunately, his people don't always cooperate, but ultimately, through his actions on earth, somehow, some way, God will be glorified. Paul in Ephesians 3:10 indicates that we have a role to play in manifesting the manifold wisdom of God to the cosmos. So as individuals, it is our duty to move without resistance and without delay when God instructs us to move. For he sees the dangers and opportunities that we cannot see. And in moving at his instructions, we manifest the manifold wisdom of God to the entire universe. Now, if God is so good, so gracious, and so loving, why would he have the Israelites kill off a nations of people, including women and children? Find out in part 6, the iniquity of the Amorites.